It's really hard to comprehend it because in 15 years, it's hard to comprehend that happening, you know.
They say a man's final wish carries the weight of his entire life. And for Elvis Presley, that wish was never simple. In the summer of 1977, the air around Graceland felt heavy, not just with the Memphis heat, but with something unspoken. Elvis was restless. He walked the halls late at night, talking to the portraits on the walls, whispering things only God could hear. His closest friends would later say he'd begun talking about home in a different way. Not fame, not Graceland, but the kind of home that can't be found on this earth. Elvis was only 42, but he looked like a man who'd lived 3 lifetimes. The pills, the pressure, the loneliness, they all took their toll. Yet even through the exhaustion, he held on to one quiet, private promise. A promise about where he wanted to rest when his time came. He spoke of it one night to his father, Vernon, after walking through the meditation garden. "Daddy," he said softly, "when I go, don't put me in Hollywood. Don't ship me off somewhere fancy. I want to be close to Mama." Gladys Presley's death had broken him in ways the world never truly saw. She was buried in Forest Hill Cemetery in Memphis, and Elvis visited that grave every chance he got. Sometimes he'd arrive after midnight, sitting alone by her tombstone for hours. To him, that spot wasn't just sacred, it was the last place he'd ever felt peace. So when he made that promise to his father, to rest near his mother, to stay rooted in Memphis soil, Vernon nodded, fighting tears. He gave his word. Elvis believed it would be honored. But just weeks later, on that August morning, the world changed forever. The headlines screamed, "Elvis Presley dead at 42." And within hours, that promise began to unravel. The funeral was chaos. Thousands outside Graceland's gates, sobbing, shouting, singing. Vernon was drowning in decisions, surrounded by Colonel Parker's people, lawyers and family members pulling him in every direction. He wanted to protect his son, but he also wanted to protect what was left of their world. Elvis was laid to rest at Forest Hill Cemetery, right beside his mother, just as he wanted. For a brief moment, that promise was kept. But something about it felt unfinished, almost as if the earth itself couldn't hold him there for long. And it couldn't, because just weeks later, a chilling event would force the Presley family to make a choice. One that would change everything about where Elvis Presley rests to this day. It began with fear. In the stillness of a Memphis night, someone tried to steal Elvis Presley's body. Grave robbers, armed with tools and flashlights, had broken into Forest Hill Cemetery. The attempt failed, but the message was clear. Even in death, Elvis wasn't safe. Vernon was shaken to his core. He was already haunted by grief, but this was different. He couldn't bear the thought of his son's grave being violated. And so began the conversations that would move Elvis's body. The same conversations that would break the promise Elvis once made about where he wanted to rest. Priscilla flew in from California. She'd always said she could feel Elvis's spirit at Graceland, as if he'd never truly left. When Vernon told her the plan to bring Elvis home, to bury him inside the walls of Graceland itself, she hesitated. She remembered that letter Elvis had written years earlier, tucked away in his private Bible. In it, he'd written, "When I'm gone, don't make a show of it. Keep me close to Mama. That's all I ask." That small line, written in his own hand, became the heart of the family's greatest argument. On one side, Vernon and the security team insisted that Graceland was the only place safe enough, private, protected, sacred. On the other, some family members whispered that moving him would dishonor his final wish. But time was short and threats were real. The cemetery was crawling with reporters and fans. Vernon made the call. Elvis and his mother would both be moved, together. In late October of 1977, under the cover of darkness, the bodies of Elvis and Gladys Presley were quietly relocated to Graceland. Few people knew the exact night. It was meant to be secret, respectful. But for Vernon, it was a night filled with guilt. He'd broken his son's word to keep him at Forest Hill. Afterward, he would tell friends he believed Elvis forgave him. "He's home now," Vernon said softly, standing at the new gravesite in the meditation garden. "This is where he belongs." Priscilla tried to accept it, but she kept that letter, folded, worn, sacred, as a reminder of the man beneath the legend. The man who still longed to rest near the woman who raised him. Years later, when Graceland opened to the public, that garden became more than a burial site. It became a pilgrimage. Fans came from every corner of the world, bringing tears, prayers, and songs. They believed Elvis's soul lingered there, protecting the place he loved. But even then, whispers persisted that maybe Elvis never wanted this, that he never wanted his grave to become a museum piece. And as the decades passed, new documents would emerge, papers hinting that Graceland's decision was never meant to be permanent. Something deeper was still unfinished, something hidden. And when that truth finally came to light, it would bring Graceland to tears. It began quietly, just a few lines in a press release from Graceland. At first, most people barely noticed, but within hours, it was everywhere. News outlets, fan pages, radio hosts, all repeating the same haunting phrase: a reevaluation of the Presley family resting place. For millions who'd walked that meditation garden in silence, it hit like thunder. What could that possibly mean? Was Elvis being moved again? Was something found? The official statement didn't give much away, only that a private review of the gravesite had been ordered, involving structural assessment, preservation work, and the examination of archival burial records. But it wasn't the words that shook fans. It was what they implied. For decades, Graceland had been treated as holy ground. The idea of disturbing it, even for preservation, felt unthinkable. Yet behind closed doors, something deeper was happening. According to insiders, the Presley estate had received new information, a rediscovered set of documents from 1977 that contradicted parts of the official burial record. The papers suggested that during the midnight relocation from Forest Hill, a symbolic substitution had taken place. Not deception, protection. Vernon Presley, they said, had ordered a safeguard measure, ensuring that if anyone ever tried again to disturb Elvis's grave, they would never truly find what they sought. The announcement reignited one of the oldest rumors in music history, that Elvis's resting place wasn't what the world believed it to be. Priscilla was said to be deeply emotional during the meeting when these records were first presented. One witness claimed she left the room in tears, whispering, "He never wanted this to be spectacle, just peace." For her, this wasn't about conspiracy. It was about heartbreak, about promises broken and peace disturbed again after nearly 50 years. The estate's decision to go public was not unanimous. Some wanted to keep the review quiet to avoid fan hysteria, but others argued the truth, however painful, belonged to history. So, the statement was released. And within days, thousands gathered outside the gates of Graceland. They lit candles, left letters, and sang softly into the Memphis night. Old fans who had stood outside those same gates in 1977 came again, gray-haired now, but carrying the same grief. Younger fans, born long after his death, came too, drawn by something spiritual. They said the air felt different that week, heavier, quieter, as if even the walls of Graceland were holding their breath. Meanwhile, historians and journalists scrambled to verify the claim. They requested access to the documents, cross-checked cemetery logs, and compared signatures. Some found small inconsistencies, dates that didn't match, initials that weren't. Vernon's others insisted it proved nothing. But to Elvis's true believers, proof didn't matter. They knew one thing. Elvis never wanted his grave to be a spectacle. He wanted privacy, even in death. And if Vernon had done something, anything, to protect that peace, they believed it was done out of love. In a quiet press conference held days later, a Graceland representative stepped to the microphone, voice trembling slightly. "We understand the emotion this has caused. The Presley family's wish, and always will be, that Elvis rest with dignity. The review is to preserve, not disturb." Then came the part that made the world stop. "We can confirm the presence of a sealed capsule beneath the Presley family memorial, placed there in 1977 at the instruction of Vernon Presley. It will remain unopened." That was all they said, but it was enough. Tears filled the crowd outside. Reporters tried to shout questions, but no one answered. The capsule, what was in it? Why was it sealed? No one knew. Only that it had been placed there the same night Elvis's body was moved from Forest Hill. In that moment, the meaning of the meditation garden shifted forever. It wasn't just a gravesite anymore. It was a message, one left by a father who loved his son so fiercely he'd rewrite history to keep him safe. The announcement ended with one final line. "Elvis Aaron Presley will remain where he has always belonged, here at home at Graceland." But those who stood there that night said something changed in the air when the words were read. Some swore they heard faint music drifting from the mansion windows. Others said it was only the wind through the oaks. Either way, no one left untouched, because the question now wasn't where Elvis rested. It was what he left behind beneath that marble stone. In the days after that announcement, the world couldn't stop talking about the capsule beneath Elvis Presley's grave. Fans speculated endlessly. Some believed it held a lock of his mother's hair. Others said it contained a private letter written by Elvis himself. But those closest to the family said the truth was far more sacred and far more heartbreaking. The capsule, they whispered, wasn't just a tribute, it was a covenant between a father and son. A quiet promise that no matter how loud the world became, some things would remain untouched. One of Elvis's cousins, Billy Smith, later said in an interview that Vernon had gone to the meditation garden the morning after the reburial, long before it was open to the public. He stood there alone, beside that fresh marble, holding something wrapped in a faded blue cloth. A Bible said to have been Elvis's since his teenage years, pages marked with handwritten notes, underlined verses, and prayers scrawled in his own messy script. That Bible, along with a folded letter written in Vernon's hand, was sealed inside the capsule. Vernon told no one what the letter said, but those who knew him said he couldn't look at the grave without his eyes filling with tears. It was as if that sealed capsule carried not just Elvis's memory, but his father's apology. For years, the story stayed hidden within family whispers. Visitors came, tours passed through, and every day, flowers were placed over that very spot, the one where the capsule slept beneath the marble. None of them knew that under those roses and prayers lay a father's silent plea for forgiveness. But time has a way of uncovering what the heart tries to hide. When Lisa Marie Presley began spending more time at Graceland in her later years, she reportedly grew curious about those same stories. She'd been told bits and pieces as a child, how her grandfather had left something behind for her father. When she learned of the capsule's existence, she asked to see the original documents confirming it. According to one longtime staff member, Lisa wept when she read the notes. She didn't ask for the capsule to be opened. Instead, she left her own message. A handwritten letter sealed in plastic, placed beneath the marble near her father's grave. A message only he would ever know. After Lisa Marie's passing, her daughter Riley spoke briefly to the press, saying, "Everything at Graceland is exactly as it should be." To fans, it sounded like a simple reassurance, but to those who knew the family history, it carried something deeper. The sense that the Presley story had finally come full circle. Still, not everyone found peace in the mystery. Journalists and self-proclaimed Elvis truth seekers launched investigations, hunting for clues about the capsule's contents. Some claimed they had leaked documents proving Vernon included an unrecorded will. Others said it contained a confession about the publishing rights that tore Elvis apart. None of it could be verified. But to the people who truly loved Elvis, those theories missed the point. They didn't need to know what was inside. They only needed to know why it was placed there. Elvis had lived his entire life surrounded by noise, cameras, contracts, crowds. The capsule, in its quiet secrecy, was the one thing that belonged entirely to him and his family. It was their final act of protection, a spiritual lockbox holding the last unbroken bond between father, son, and mother. Pastor Bob Joyce once spoke about it during a sermon without naming names. He said, "Sometimes the greatest truth isn't what you dig up, it's what you choose to let rest." Many believe he was referring to that very capsule. And maybe he was right. Because what lies beneath Elvis's grave isn't a secret waiting to be exposed. It's a symbol of what can't be destroyed: love, loyalty, and the human need for redemption. Today, when fans walk through the meditation garden, they often stop in silence at the foot of Elvis's stone. Some feel an odd sense of warmth, as if the air itself hums with something unseen. They can't explain it, but maybe that's the point. Elvis once said, "Truth is like a song. You can't always hear it, but you can always feel it." And if you stand long enough in that garden, surrounded by roses, wind, and the echoes of gospel, you start to feel it too. That maybe the real story of Elvis Presley isn't about fame or mystery or the capsule beneath his name. Maybe it's about a man who, even after the lights went out, still managed to find his way home. Because the secret buried beneath that marble isn't something you can dig up. It's something you can only understand. When you realize that peace for Elvis was never about the stage or the spotlight. It was about finally being still, finally being heard, and finally being home. In the months after the announcement, Graceland changed, not in its walls or gardens, but in its spirit. Visitors said it felt softer, quieter, as if the place itself had exhaled after holding its breath for half a century. The revelation of the sealed capsule didn't just reopen old memories, it rewrote them. For decades, fans had come believing they were standing above a legend. Now they understood they were standing over a love story, one between a father and son, sealed forever beneath the marble. The mystery wasn't frightening anymore, it was comforting. Because it meant that Elvis's final resting place wasn't just about death, it was about devotion. News crews eventually packed up, historians filed their reports, and the world moved on. But something subtle lingered. People began returning to Graceland not out of curiosity, but reverence. They didn't come to chase rumors or search for secrets. They came to feel close to the man who gave his soul to the world and somehow kept his heart right here in Memphis. One morning, an elderly woman was interviewed near the meditation garden. She'd been there in '77, standing behind the iron gates the day Elvis died. Through tears, she said, "Back then, I came here because I lost my hero. Now I come because I found his peace." That peace became the new legacy of Graceland. The capsule, the announcement, the unanswered questions, they didn't tarnish Elvis's memory. They deepened it. They reminded people that beneath the rhinestones and headlines, there was a man who prayed before every show, who called his mother before every tour, who wept over the people he couldn't save. And maybe that's why Graceland endures. Because it's not really about the mansion or the music, it's about the humanity that echoes through both. Even now, when night falls over the garden, the soft lights shimmer across the gravestones of Elvis, Gladys, Vernon, and Lisa Marie. 4 names bound together by blood and faith. 4 lives that carried the weight of fame, love, and loss. And when the world grows quiet, it almost feels as if they're all finally resting together. To some, the revelation of the capsule was shocking. To others, it was healing. But to the people who've stood there, heads bowed, hearts trembling, it was something else entirely. Proof that even in death, Elvis never stopped protecting the people he loved. In a way, the story of that sealed capsule mirrors Elvis's life. Misunderstood, mysterious, but filled with meaning. You can speculate all you want about what's hidden inside, but maybe the real secret isn't what's buried. It's what still lives on. Because every time someone sings "Can't Help Falling in Love" under their breath, every time a mother rocks her child to "Love Me Tender," every time a stranger smiles at a photo of that boy from Tupelo who dreamed too big for his time, Elvis lives again. Not in marble, not in myth, but in the hearts of those who still believe that the man who changed the world never truly left it. Maybe that's what Vernon was trying to preserve when he sealed that capsule. Not mystery, but meaning. And maybe, just maybe, that's what Elvis wanted all along. To rest not just in peace, but in understanding. If you've ever stood at Elvis's grave, you know, it's more than stone and roses. It's a feeling that words can't quite hold. And if this story touched your heart, let it live on. Hit that like button to honor the man who gave his everything to the world. Subscribe for more stories that uncover the truth, the heartbreak, and the legacy behind the king. And before you go, tell us in the comments, do you believe Elvis finally found peace at Graceland? Or do you think his soul still walks those halls, protecting the home he built with love? Your words, your memories, your voice, they keep his spirit alive. Because long after the world moves on, Elvis Presley's story still whispers through time, reminding us that legends never truly die.